All right, everybody. Welcome to a bonus episode of Backlash Podcast. Brad and Carrie from Muskie Mayhem Tackle and myself from Team Rhino Outdoors. We had talked about doing this many, many times, and finally we just did it. It's a lot of work for us to put out extra episodes, but the response that we've gotten from the podcast in recent weeks is, it's pretty awesome. So we decided that it's something that we really felt like we needed to do is put out a few of these episodes. We just want to thank everybody for listening. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk to Sean Leopardi from the Muskie Max in Pennsylvania. It's a show. He's going to kind of give you a brief rundown of his show. From everything I know about it, it's a pretty awesome show. And Brad, Carrie, why don't you guys talk a little bit about where they can find your product at that show?
Yeah, the last couple of years, we've been really fortunate, Jeff, to have John Betty from Stealth carry some of our product out there. So anybody going to the PA show can still see some of our product. And, it's been the normal baits that we usually carry, but this year we're actually just boxing up a couple things with the new Rabbit Girl. And I think we're going to try to get some squirrels in there as well. So anybody that's looking for some of the Muskie Mayhem tackle products, they can find them in the Stealth booth, and John Betty will be more than happy to help you out.
Yes, everybody check out John Betty, pick up some leaders, pick up some Muskie Mayhem tackle at that show. So that's first up. We're going to talk to Sean from the Muskie Max Plus show, and then we're going to continue on. We're going to answer a couple questions in the Q&A part of it. Well, I guess, do you guys have anything else you want to do on the intro, or is that pretty much we're just going to go shoot right into Sean?
I think that's pretty solid. Let's get her going.
All right. So here, we're going to go talk to Sean right now. So everybody, now we're going to be talking to Sean Leopardi with the Muskie Max show in PA. For anybody that doesn't know, it's a pretty cool show. I've heard there's a lot of buzz about the show. I guess it draws quite the crowd on a Saturday. I heard that it's also a very good show on Sunday. Got a few different things going on there on Sundays. So Sean, thanks for taking a little bit of time out of your day to come out and talk to us. Do you think that let's start off with dates and location. When's the show and where's it at?
Sure. Well, first off, I want to thank you for inviting me on the show. This is great. Really appreciate the opportunity. So Muskie Max, it's in year number 8. We have a lot of fun with this thing, and it is March 7th and 8th. Exhibitors will set up on the 6th, and it's at Printscape Arena in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, which is just south of the city of Pittsburgh.
And from what I can tell, you guys get quite the lineup of exhibitors. You get some of the big names out there. Chaos Tackle, I know our good friend John Betty from Stealth Tackle's out there. But you also get a lot of these little guys. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the smaller makers that you guys get out there?
Yeah, I think that's one of the, beautiful things about this event is, we've handpicked quality exhibitors. And I'm a muskie fisherman as well. I've been muskie fishing since I was 7 years old. That was my first trip to Ontario, Canada. And that was the first guy muskie fishing trip. And we had a blast, and we've been hooked pretty much ever since, no pun intended. But that's really the nice thing about this is, we've been fortunate over the last 8 years to develop really good relationships with a lot of the, well-known names in the business as far as exhibitors go. And as far as the great mix of local and smaller exhibitors, we'll call these people craftsmen, really. They're really good at what they do. They don't make, tens of thousands of anything. They just put a lot of care and a lot of workmanship in either rods and or fishing lures. And it's just such a nice mix. And I think with these smaller venue events, it gives the attendees the opportunity to get in and really get to meet the manufacturers. Whether it's one of the bigger exhibitors or smaller, they get to spend some time. And, it's a really special thing for kids too, because now they can also meet the family that's actually making some of the products that they use, and then they become lifelong sort of customers. For me, that's really fun for me to see this happening, unfolding right before our eyes.
So I would assume, much like any other show, seminars and learning education stuff, that's kind of a big part of it. You said you guys have some unique stuff that goes on a Sunday, but do you want to also highlight what goes on a Saturday seminar-wise?
Yeah, Saturday, it's a really busy day on Saturdays, and putting time in between the exhibitors over, say, an 8 or 9 hour day. You want to keep activity and high energy, but You also want to give the speakers who have, taken time out of their schedules and everything to be there. We want to give them enough time where they can share some really solid information and address questions and things like that. But for 2020 on Saturday, March 7th, we've got a lineup of Jason Quintano from Fins and Grins. We've got Tony Grant Outdoors. We've got Ken Trail from Rock On Fishing Guides and Vance Kalos, who's with Muddy Creek Fishing Guides. What I really love about that, too, is we're covering St. Clair. We're covering Cave Run. We're covering James River, Virginia. We're covering some western Pennsylvania waters, including Lake Chautauqua. Just by these 4 guides, we've really been able to cover a wide stretch in very different types of bodies of water. And then on Sunday, March 8th at noon, we did this last year, and it was really well received. We call it the Muskie Max Ask Us Anything Pro Guide Panel. And actually, Tony Grant is a moderator, and we put a lineup of Greg Thomas and Ken Trail and Brian Clark and Spencer Berman, Vance, and Jason. We line them up on the stage, and we field questions that are unrehearsed, unsolicited, whatever, unscripted, I guess is a better word. And we catch these guys sort of off guard, and it is a very fun time. People really enjoy this.
It sounds like a really good time out there, Sean. What are your hours out there? I don't know if you caught that in the beginning.
Sure. It's Saturday, March 7th. It's going to be 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I know this sounds crazy and people maybe roll their eyes or whatever, but people start to get in line around 4:15 in the morning, which it's crazy, but it's the truth. People get in there for, they want to be the first in line and we want to accommodate. So that's Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., full day. And then on Sunday, March 8th, we run 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Awesome. It sounds like you're doing a great job out there. And I know everybody that I've talked to that's been there and experienced it, they all love that show. So good work.
I appreciate that. And, I also MC the event. So I'm not a promoter that isn't visible, that isn't, participating in the event. So from setup to teardown, we are involved. And my brother, Todd Leopardi, he's involved with this as well. Leo Lures is a fishing lure that he's been making since about 1989. He's involved with the event as well in a big way.
Awesome. So, Sean, one of the neat things is that John Betty from Stealth Tackle has been putting our tackle up in his booth every year out there, and he sells quite a bit of it, actually. So he's representing Muskie Mayhem Tackle, and we truly appreciate that John does that. But Carrie and I have discussed, it's a long drive for us to make it out to PA, but I think one of these years you're going to see us. We're planning on possibly flying out there one of these springs. So that's something that's possibly in the works for next year even.
I'll tell you, we would love to have you. It would be great representation. And I think it's just a great opportunity for you to bump into a lot of other people. I know you're super well known in the industry, but you meet so many good people and there's so many new people that's very exciting for me to see how it's evolving and what's happening here. One thing about the Western Pennsylvania market is that we can't create more anglers, but we can introduce people to the sport. And so we really do, even though it's a muskie focused event, we do encourage all anglers to attend. I don't care if you're into trout, walleye, smallmouth, whatever it is. We want you to come and learn and meet a lot of these men and women that are put their hearts into this sport and give you an opportunity to learn more. And, when we've polled our audience in the past during the seminars, there's been upwards of 33% of the audience have never fished for muskie before, which if you're an exhibitor or a guide, this is a great opportunity for you to share your story. So we always want to make people feel welcome. There's no such thing as a foolish question. Well, I guess there is sometimes, but we always want to encourage people to ask questions, and I want them to always feel welcome. The other piece of this is kids. We want to make sure that this is a family-oriented event, and we get about 200 to 250 kids age 12 and under, and we have a local bank. Next Tier Bank is a sponsor that sponsors the Muskie Max Kids Spot, and they have got snacks and crafts, and it's free for parents just to chill out for a little while and just enjoy the show. it's just worked out really well. So kids and folks who aren't familiar with the muskie fishing sport, it's a great way for them to get introduced.
Well, Sean, we certainly appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk to us about the Muskie Max Plus in Pennsylvania coming up in a couple weeks. I hope you have a great show. And like I said, we really appreciate the time. You know, you coming out. Like I said, everything that we can hear out here has been nothing but positive about the show. I mean, everybody I talk to says that place is jam-packed on Saturday. In fact, from what I understand, I talked to Chaos Tackle, and there's another show in Wisconsin that's going on the same weekend, and usually he takes the smaller booth to PA and he takes his bigger booth to northern Wisconsin. But this year, I think he said he's going to flip-flop, and Rick Albers is actually taking the biggest booth he has out to PA just because of how that crowd is out there.
Rick is going to have a big setup, no doubt. But I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, and I wish you guys all the best, and just be safe on the water this year.
Thanks for coming out, Sean. Have a great event.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Continuing on with the podcast, we had a couple questions that we're going to answer. We had a Facebook post out there. There's a bunch of questions on there that we're going to just continue to answer, randomly here and there. So one of the questions we had was, what is the procedure or what are the tips that you would do for fishing dark water with a visibility of less than 1 foot? I got a few ideas. Brad, you got a couple ideas too? Carrie?
Oh, for sure.
Maybe.
Carrie's a maybe.
Well, let's let her handle the entire question then.
Well, I mean, she's a seminar speaker. Let's let her fly.
I'm not a seminar speaker, and I have very rarely fished dark water, so I don't get out much. I don't get to do that stuff. My husband doesn't take me anywhere where there's dark water to fish, so I only can maybe chime in on that.
You can come up by me. There's a whole pile of dark water up there in northern Wisconsin. Tons of it. Whole river's full of dark water, and I know many lakes that are too.
Well, the interesting thing about dark water is that there's multiple choices when it comes to dark water. One being, is it muddy? Is it tannic? It could be, dark water could be just a really bad algae bloom. And that's something that you deal with in a lot of different waters. But generally speaking, I spend a lot of time on clearer water. And I think, a lot of water has changed over the last, say, 8-10 years with the zebra mussels. The zebra mussels have really cleaned up a lot of bodies of water throughout, I know, Wisconsin and Minnesota. So I think we can dive right into it, though, Jeff. I'm ready.
All right. Well, let's hear your thoughts on dark water, and then I'll either expand on your thoughts or I'll offer my own thoughts because, like I said, I have some experience fishing dark water.
Yeah, I think it's really not much different than fishing after dark. When the sun goes down, your water's dark then as well. And so one of the big key factors I would say is slow down your presentation. You want to let those fish actually find that bait so that they can chow it. That's one key component that I would say. But then again, I would also look at using noisier baits that maybe have rattles, baits that produce a ton of noise in the water. Bigger baits sometimes can be part of that equation, but you definitely want to provide them some noise in the water. And then if you want to start talking colors, a lot of times it seems kind of strange, but a silhouette type bait, a dark bait. So maybe you're going to use a black in that dark black water, or maybe it's tannic. Maybe it's more of that rust colored tannic water. A lot of times with that, I kind of match that same color. So like a brown orange, or maybe even possibly a red or copper blades definitely stand out really well in tannic water. And that can be, I said algae bloom. Algae bloom, a lot of times you can even match it there. Sometimes it's orange. Sometimes in that greener water, you're going to want to use more of a chartreuse. But definitely think about that. It's kind of interesting when you kind of match that color of that water. Sometimes it stands out better.
Yeah, I won't disagree with any of that. I would say if you're talking tannic stained water, darker, like not dirty, but it would be, just like tea colored or coffee colored, really dark coffee colored. Then I would be using, like you had said, a lot of black and orange is very typical for me. The other thing that Brad had said was slowing down. That's something that is, mildly effective. I haven't found that burning blades is really super effective in a condition like that. The other thing that I make sure that I do in super dark water is I make sure I do really good figure eights, and sometimes I'll actually go around twice because I've had a lot of action boat side in super dark water, and you can't literally see them. I mean, if you're talking a foot of visibility, they can literally be down 1 foot. You wouldn't see them. So I typically make sure that my figure eights are even better than I normally would in clear water. And I'll do lots of blind figure eights. I mean, I figure eight every cast anyways, but like I said, I'll sometimes go around twice just because of that. I've had numerous fish on very dark water. And, like Brad was saying too, like bigger profile will work. I mean, but I've caught fish on smaller ones, so I wouldn't necessarily say that's like a hard, fast rule, but just a couple of things that I've found. What else? Making noise. Brad's right with making noise. I would say that crankbaits with rattles are good. Double 10 bucktails, double 9 bucktails, topwater can be really good. Although I've also used dive and rise baits, and those do fine too. Sometimes just the hooks hitting the bait itself will make noise, and that can help too. So there's just a few things that I found about dark water. But like I said, the biggest thing for me had always been figure eights. Make sure you have really good figure eights.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely, Jeff. And, that's a really good point. One of the things too, as you're doing a figure eight or you do an oval, whatever you choose to do, you really got to pay attention. And a lot of times that's a big surprise when they actually eat. Another part of that equation is you might be relying more on your side imaging as well, being in tune with where your bait is. And you can use that side imaging also to possibly see that fish as it's following.
Yeah, I've heard that more and more people are, looking at their side imaging for figure eights. I still use it, but I use my side imaging more when I troll, which is probably not the way I should do it, but that's just the way I've done it. And so, but I know of multiple people that tell me, yeah, we caught one because we saw it on the side imaging. Still, I use side imaging quite a bit, but I don't probably use it to its full potential.
Well, that's a game that everybody's going to continually learn on. I would not call myself an expert by any means, but it definitely has become an important key to putting more fish in the boat. That's for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with anybody that says it doesn't know how to use the technology, probably, because I can't imagine it's going to help you catch less muskies. So.
Yeah, I just find it interesting. It's a second set of eyes, and you try to put every tool in the toolbox to enable the most success on the water. Again, side imaging is part of that equation when it comes to dark water.
So, I guess if we want to take this one just slightly further, typically in dark water, your weed growth it's not going to grow as deep based off of what I've found. You don't get as much light penetration. So I also find myself typically fishing shallower, but I've also found very good open water bites in dark water too. So I don't want to say that eliminates everything, but typically in order to find weeds or weed edges, you're going to be pushed up a little shallower. But don't discard the fact that they could be in the open water. And by open water, I don't necessarily mean you need to troll. Sometimes it's just me going out in dark water and finding bait fish. I have one particular lake in northern Wisconsin that's super dark, and I find bait fish. And I don't throw really loud baits. I caught them on hardheads by Phantom, bulldogs, but then again, we've also caught them on double 10s, double 9s, junior cowgirls, all that kind of stuff. And last year, we even caught them on that new mimic bait I got on that same dark water bait or dark water lake. And then we also got them on angry dragons last year too. So some things make noise, some things didn't. Mostly brighter baits with, like Brad was talking, with darker silhouettes. So just a couple different options. But like I said, granted I didn't really narrow much down, but I don't want anybody to discard the fact that they think that in a dark water lake you can't get an open water bite.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting dark water bites that I would think about, and I've actually been involved with, is down on Cave Run. In the early spring, they have a ton of runoff, and if they get a bunch of rain, it can get really dark. Have you ever fished that down there, Jeff?
Yes, I have, but that's dark water, but that's not the same kind of dark water that I have in my head. That's like greenish dark water. Like the muskies that come out of there, they're super they're almost like white.
Yeah, one of the things that that I'm talking about though is early in the spring when their water comes up really high, it almost looks like chocolate milk. You've got that mud line, if you will. A lot of times that can be challenging. And I know that they use a ton of rattle baits down there. And I know Tony Grant had that rattle and shed, and I think Lungin picked that up. Did they not?
Yes, they did. We carry that.
Okay. And it's always amazed me, it's more of a vast sized bait, but it definitely produces some fish. But again, it's a noisy bait and it's a small bait. Kind of goes against the grain of what we were just talking about, larger profile. Another good example of dark stained water.
Yeah, I would say in that type of water that you're talking is more along dirty versus coffee. What coffee water looks like. It looks really dark, but I think those fish still have better visibility than what they would in the greenish kind of water that you're talking about on Cave Run.
That's true. You can look at like St. Clair. St. Clair has a mixture. You've got some dark water, you've got clear water, and they're looking for that line of that difference. But you're right. That is a different tone, but there's so many different tones, that's kind of a loaded question. How do you fish dark water,
Right.
because it can vary so much.
Well, that's like this past spring, or not spring. It was like, when the heck was it? It was June-ish, later June. I fished with Noah Binsfield on the river. Now that water was dark, but it was like mud stained water, like super dirty. It wasn't like coffee colored, like super dark coffee. It was like super dirty. And so there, it was mostly top water and blades, but then, Steve was throwing a hellhound glide bait and he was having action on a glide bait on that hellhound. And from what I remember, I don't think those hellhounds even have rattles in them. Like I said, there's kind of a mixture. It's always, if you have two guys in the boat, I would change it up. Again, no hard, fast rules in muskie fishing. You're going to have to play around a little bit and try to just sometimes think outside the box and not get stuck in a rut.
That's for sure. And it's easy to do, Jeff. I don't know. Hopefully answered that question decent enough. Definitely probably going to be a few things that pop up in our heads later at a different time. But I think off the cuff, I think we covered that one pretty good.
I would agree. So then the last one that we're going to do for today, we're going to talk about it. The other question was like kids and fishing, getting kids involved in fishing. So Brad has a daughter. I have 4 kids. And I can tell you that amongst my 4 kids, there are varying degrees of interest in muskie fishing, or even fishing in general. I have my older daughter who, if you watch our YouTube channel, you'd see her. She caught a muskie casting this year. She's very into muskie fishing and fishing in general, being out on the water, which is weird because she's a super girly girl, makeup and all that kind of jazz. But then I have my younger daughter who's 11, almost 12. She has very little interest in being on the water unless we're going swimming in the pontoon boat, and she doesn't want much to do with fishing. But oddly enough, she's willing to touch worms and all sorts of stuff if somebody needs their hook baited, so that's strange. And then my 6-year-old son and my 8-year-old son, they both have, I'd say, a mild interest in it. Obviously, I think as they get a little bit older, they'll be more into it. So you have varying degrees just based on personalities alone. Some kids just want to do it and other kids don't. So, Brad, you want to talk a little bit about your experience with getting kids in fishing, and I'll kind of talk about what I think too again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's a great question. And having a daughter of my own and trying to, what I call, plant a seed. And I think what it really, really boils down to is when you have a young person, you want to plant these seeds so that it's enjoyable. You got to make it fun. If it's not fun, they're going to go, man, I don't want to do this ever again. Planting that seed is something that's going to grow. And over a period of years, they're going to want to be more and more involved in it because it is fun. And that's what it really boils down to is if we didn't think this sport was fun, we wouldn't be involved. So that's really important. And by doing it and making it fun, there's no burnout. One of the things that Carrie and I have always done with Mika is basically we get her out there fishing. If it's tough and it's not going real well, guess what? We're going to quit when she's done. But we don't quit right away when she's like, we got to go. We kind of push it a little bit, but it depends, and we try to read her on that. So, I mean, having fun in the boat is the biggest key. The second component in my mind is multi-species. If you're out muskie fishing and you can go slip in some panfish of some sort just to break up the monotony, a lot of times that makes a difference as well. But the one equation that my daughter blows me away. I mean, she's 6, 7 years old and she's out doing guide trips with me. basically enabling me to have an extra line for guys, and she'll go 12, 16 hours a day. It's kind of mind-boggling. I don't know that I could have done that at that age. Maybe I could have. It's a practice of patience, if you will, and that's not always easy for our youth.
No, but the one thing that you talked about was like kind of letting her dictate when the day is over as far as fishing goes. Like I found with my kids that if I want to push them longer, it's just going to end up ruining their experience is going to be ruined. So they're not going to be very likely to want to come back and go fishing with me again if I let them. If I'm dictating and I'm saying, nope, we're out here for 8 hours today, that's not going to work out well. Fortunately for me, we have a camper up on Pelican Lake in northern Wisconsin. So if I'm going fishing with the kids, I'm usually going to stay on Pelican, because then if I need to, say they're bored, done, whatever, but I'm not done and I want to keep fishing, I can call Melissa and have her come down, get the kid off the dock, and then I can go back out. At least that way they kind of get their feet wet for as long as they want to. And unfortunately, I know I don't like talking panfish on this podcast, but Carrie, this is where you get to come in, because I'm thinking you're going to want to go bluegill fishing with them.
I do. But we do that. We've done the dock thing. Brad's been out for all day, and Mika wants to go with, and 2:00 she decides she's done, and I meet him at the access and pick her up, and they go back out. We've done that many times. And the multi-species thing, that helps them also. We also like multi-species, bluegill fishing, bass fishing, whatever. Bluegill fishing, Mika does a fair amount of swimming while the rest of us are fishing. We have found that bluegills don't really care if there's a 7, 8, 9-year-old swimming in the water. They still bite. So she'll fish for a while, then she'll jump in, then she'll come back and fish for a while, then she'll jump in. It's just the way it goes, but it's how she stays engaged.
Maybe a little off topic, when she's in the water swimming, it's pretty amazing. She'll be kicking around the boat and whatever, and we're fishing right below her. And actually, I think what it does is it kicks away a lot of the small fish and empowers us to catch the bigger ones. So it's not a bad thing having her in the water swimming. Now, that doesn't work very good in the muskie sport, that's for sure. But and who knows? Maybe it does. We haven't tried it.
Well, over in Minnesota, though, don't they have all those kid-eating muskies there? So I don't know if I would do that, because muskies are known to attack many, many kids over there in Minnesota, I hear.
Yeah, you hear things like that. I don't even want to go there, Jeff. That's the topic that we don't need to make bigger.
Well, they don't bite kids over here in Wisconsin. We're fine with muskies. They're okay. It's only those Minnesota muskies that bite kids.
Yeah, we've got some people that are anti, that's for sure, over here. And who knows, is it a pike? What was it that actually bit them? There's no real just to that deal.
It was a walleye. Always blame the walleye.
Well, those walleyes, they run in packs, and they're kind of like the wolves of the water. You got to watch them.
Yep, exactly.
And that's a joke, just so people know.
Well, is there anything else you guys want to add to their conversation about kids and fishing?
Yeah, I think there's two components, and I'll let Carrie do one, and then I'm going to finish up with another one that I think is somewhat important.
One thing that we always make sure that we have, whether we have just one kid in the boat or like last fall we had 4 kids in the boat, is that you have plenty of snack or food or whatever, because they're always happy if they get to eat a sandwich or they get to eat a candy they picked out, or they get to eat their favorite cupcake or whatever. So we always make sure there's no shortage of things for them to get into when we're in the boat.
I think that adds a component to the whole deal. I mean, definitely it breaks up some monotony. And sometimes it gives them something forward to look forward to. And, so snacks and drinks, that definitely can curb some monotony in the boat, if you will. But another component to this whole deal is definitely getting them a rig that actually works for them. And what I mean by a rig is I'm talking about a rod and a reel. The last 2 years, we've worked with Mika casting, and she's 9 now, but when she was 8 and 7, she wanted to start casting. And one of the things, I can't hand her a TE or, a bigger framed reel of any sort. I can, but believe me, it's going to be short lived because she can't physically handle that pressure of a long rod and a big reel. So what we've done is we have downsized the rod length a little bit. I started her with a 6-footer, and it's just an old Shimano Compre that I had laying around. And that one worked pretty good for her. And I had a 200 series GT TE, and that was kind of a cool reel for her. But again, it stood off the rod just a little bit too big for her hands, and she didn't like foregripping. So we have now switched her to an 8'6" rod, which is lighter, but we put a Corrado on it. And that Corrado is a great little reel. I mean, it's meant for bass, but it's a great low profile reel that works really well for her. Got a great drag system in it. The brakes in it are really feasible for tightening it down so that she can cast different size baits. And she's actually managing quite well at this point. So one of the things that I would suggest to people is not only trying to make it fun, but make it fun in the sense that the equipment fits them. If it doesn't fit them, they're going to fatigue early. They're going to be frustrated because it isn't working for them. And part of the equation is maybe take them into a store and get them fitted for that stuff, because once they actually know it's their own, that kind of turns some wheels in their brain as well.
I just keep thinking about the cupcakes I'm going to get when I come over to Minnesota next time. You said you get kids and their favorite cupcakes, so this is going to be awesome.
Jeff, you're not a kid anymore.
Ask my wife about that. Ask Carrie about that.
I'll make you a cupcake, Jeff.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that. What about...
That means you're coming over here.
I guess, if I want cupcakes. Although at that point, I could probably buy the best cupcake ever right here in town and just stay here. The other thing I found about kids, and sometimes you can keep them a little bit distracted, is by trolling. Whether you're trolling for muskies or you're trolling for something else, just the difference in, different scenery and different boats going by and things changing. You can probably draw out a little bit of extra time if you want to spend some time trolling. And sometimes I've done it where we're just trolling with two lines, one holding one, and I'll just throw out some flicker shads or whatever. And, just quick and easy. That way they can potentially get hit and get a fish that way too. And it might buy you a little extra time on the water. And who knows if you catch a muskie or a bass or a whatever, obviously success is going to help, get them more excited about the next trip. So just a few tips to get you through and get you more time on the water with your kids or neighbors' kids or whoever's kids. It's just good to get the youth out fishing.
Hands down, Jeff. You're talking about that trolling scenario, and I've been known to actually put some minnows in a pail right in the boat, and believe me, minnows in a pail can last a long time. Walleye fishing, I've been known to stick night crawlers up both nostrils, things like that. Anything to kind of keep them going, So it's about just making it a great time, and that's what I suggest to everybody.
Gary, he's sticking night crawlers up his nostrils, and and he's trying to call me a kid or something like that, or whatever, or I'm not a kid anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Hey, man, you do anything you can do to stay on the water. You don't catch them from the couch, Jeff.
I don't know. I draw the line at night crawlers in my nostrils. That's where I draw the line.
Hey, you gotta make what works.
I guess. I think I'm just gonna. If at that point, I'm just getting off the water. If that's my option, stay on the water, stick night crawlers up my nose, or get off the water, I'm getting off the water.
You can just have some gummy worms available, Jeff.
Those are good. Everybody likes gummy worms. Fat kids over here like gummy worms.
Brad's thing is there's always red licorice in the boat. He has to have red licorice and smoked almonds.
It's not a bad option. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our question and answer session on this podcast. We'd love to do more of these bonus episodes. So if you haven't checked out our post from, I don't know, it's probably maybe like 3 weeks ago on our Facebook page, we have some questions on there. If you guys want to add more questions onto it, go ahead and do it. We're just going to keep pulling them randomly. Some of them we're going to answer, me and Brad and Carrie. Other ones we're going to have the guests answer them. I know in future episodes we have quite a few guests coming up, and they'll be able to handle some of them as well. So it's not going to be quite always the question and answer session. Hopefully you guys enjoyed what Sean had to say about the PA show. Muskie Max sounds like it's going to be a great event again. If you guys have time, go check it out if you're in the area. Obviously, guys in Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, they might not be making the trip, but heck, you might find a cool basement bait maker that you don't see every day, and then you want to go make the trip out to Muskie Max. It sounds like it's a pretty cool event.
It's always sounded like he puts on a pretty good show out there. I know the people that go, every one of them I talk to are always excited about that event. So it's good stuff.
So on another topic, for anybody that's recently got a Hummingbird unit and you want to learn a little bit about mounting transducers, on our YouTube channel, we just put up a new video. Matt Seifert does a really great rundown on how to mount the transducer, talks about what he does to make sure that it's fine with no bubbles and everything works out right. So go to our YouTube channel, check it out there. You'll also be able to find episodes of Backlash Podcast on there. Our primary source for getting the podcast out is still going to be on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Overcast. Those are going to be where you're going to find the podcast the quickest, always updated. And that's where it goes first. We are going to eventually add all the stuff from YouTube, or all the podcasts onto YouTube. But for now, you want to go check out that video. It's, in my opinion, it's really well done. Matt did an amazing job. And if you've listened to the podcast in the past, you know how knowledgeable Matt is with the Hummingbird units. And you also know how great of a job he's done on a podcast before.
Yeah, and it isn't just to Hummingbird, Jeff. Any transducer, it can be an SI transducer or a high-speed transducer. You want to kind of follow this same pattern. So definitely something to check out. And, kind of something that we haven't really discussed a whole lot is our YouTube channel. Being combined like this, there's plans of doing a bunch of other stuff too.
For that matter, if you haven't checked out Muskie Mayhem Tackle on YouTube, go check out their channel. I know they've put out a couple of videos. I think it's been a couple already. I can't remember. I watch so much YouTube lately that, I've been in the shop a bunch at updating websites, and I've watched a lot of YouTube. So I think they had at least a couple, but I can't remember for sure. Also, if you haven't already, check out Team Rhino Outdoors on YouTube. Hopefully in the next couple days, we'll have another video out. We did a 2-part deal to St. Clair, so you'll see the struggles of St. Clair and you'll see the greatness of St. Clair in 2 separate videos. And hopefully it'll be out in a couple days. My plan is once you hear this one, if you actually listen on a Friday, that it'll be out on Sunday. But we'll see if that actually comes through. But hopefully that's the plan. And as far as everything else goes, Team Rhino Outdoors, you can check us out at teamrhinooutdoors.com. The one thing I haven't ever mentioned in the past is Team Rhino Outdoors. We are a retailer in the muskie world. I've mentioned that plenty of times. But for people that don't know, our carts update in real time. So you can go through and you can shop on there, and our inventory is updated. So if you can add it to your cart and check out, unless Melissa and I or one of the kids made a mistake counting something, which happens occasionally, but super rare. But anyways, you're good to go. Your cart your order will ship. And typically we try to ship it within 24 hours or close to. Right now with shows and everything, sometimes things are a little bit more delayed, but typically it won't affect anybody in the Midwest because they're not fishing anyways. So that's it on Team Rhino Outdoors. Again, we have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and the YouTube like we talked about. Occasionally I tweet. At TRO Fishing is the Twitter handle, so if you want to check that out. Backlash Podcast, you can find us at all the other places I just had listed. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. If you want to get in touch with us, backlashpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find Backlash Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. So Brad, Carrie, why don't you guys talk about Muskie Mayhem Tackle? We'll wrap up this bonus episode. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. I know we had fun doing it like we always do.
You can find Muskie Mayhem Tackle at muskiemayhemtackle.com. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. If you're not subscribed to one of the 3 or all of the 3 YouTube channels, Muskie Mayhem Tackle, Team Rhino Outdoors, and Backlash Podcast, you should, because then you'll get the notification every time a new video gets put up. You can also find more cool Muskie Mayhem Tackle info at on Brad's Instagram account, which is Muskie Mayhem Guide Service. He's got all kinds of cool random photos to look at from his years of guiding. And that's about it.
Well, Brad, you got anything to add to that?
I think you guys covered it pretty well. So we're pretty excited about this new video. Go check it out. Until next time, Jeff, let's shift gears and end this one, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll catch you all again next Wednesday.